All right, there we are. Welcome to another episode of Frags and Beer Radio News. This is our 20th episode, which is a pretty big milestone for us. And it's also a big episode. We're going to talk about some cool tech news. And we have a guest along with my co host, Russell Michaels. Welcome, Russell.
Hello.
And we're joined by Brian Hall, who's a tech writer and also writes for the Daily Cloud, which is an industry newsletter for the cloud industry. But he also tends to cover Apple products quite a bit, so that's why we're having him here tonight. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you.
And before we jump into that, also I wanted to say the usual. If you're watching the live show, please join the chat on the right. You can ask us questions, talk. You can just click join right there. If you're watching the recorded show and you like what you see on the channel, please like, comment, and subscribe. We really appreciate it. We love all you guys that come to watch the show. So yeah, we're going to jump into some tech and sort of spacey news because I love this stuff and it these two stories that I pulled out tie to some really old school kind of geek stuff that I wanted to talk about. And the first one is out of the Telegraph in their science section. Dolphins have been recorded having a conversation, and I guess we've known for a long time that dolphins and whales and other sea life obviously communicate. Animals communicate, but for the first time, they've recorded two dolphins having a conversation like people do. And from what they explain, these researchers recorded a back and forth conversation where the dolphins seemed to be waiting. One dolphin would wait for the other dolphin to complete a sentence or complete a string of communication before responding back and forth, basically having a conversation. And this immediately brought to mind the book series Pern, which Russell and Brian have not read. I asked before the show. But I thought it was really cool that the science fiction, a science fiction idea that's almost, 45 years old now, looks like it might be a reality. Like if we could come up with a way to translate what dolphins say, we might be able to talk to one of the creatures on this planet that's almost as smart as we are. So I mean, do you guys say? What do you think about that? Reading that story.
Interesting.
Yeah, seems pretty remarkable to me. As someone who likes science fiction, I love the idea of us being able to know that other animals actually have conversations and then ultimately, have some sort of universal translator. I'm not sure what the end game is. Once we can talk to animals, well, then what?
Right.
I mean, there's still our food or maybe our servants, or we can use them. I don't see how. I'm not sure what we gain
Right.
or what they're going to gain.
Yeah, that's very true. That's a very interesting moral question. Is what benefit it is to them and to us, and obviously, humans aren't known for the best treatment of creatures we consider lower than us, whether they be other human beings or I mean generally we eat them. Most of us don't eat dolphins,
No.
not intentionally anyway, and we're making strides to get better at that.
How do you unintentionally do?
Well, when fisheries used to catch dolphins along with tuna and put them through the process, I mean you could eat a tuna,
okay.
so you would unintentionally, but for example, from the Pern book series, on when these, this is going way into sci-fi, but when these settlers went to another planet, they took these talking dolphins with them and used them as guides for ships and explorers in the ocean, where these dolphins could go and report back fish movements for the fishing boats and things like that. So I suppose I'm sure people will come up with a lot of good and bad uses for this kind of technology, but yeah, with you guys, it's fascinating first, and
I do, yeah.
Go ahead.
I do think it's cool. I mean, it's pretty awesome. It's just that, I mean, it seems like unless humans evolve fairly substantially, I don't see this gaining animals much.
Right.
If we can talk to them, that sort of means, oh, well, it's now easier for us to use them. I'm not sure there's any benefit to the dolphins or any other species.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And hopefully this kind of technology is going to take us a long time to like. I can't imagine what it would take to develop technology to talk to another species that can't communicate, at least on like when we talk with a foreign, or when people were first learning how to communicate with foreigners, from people from other lands who spoke different languages, we at least had the basis of, we could draw a picture of a chair and then say our word for chair, and so on and so forth. A dolphin would be completely incapable of that sort of basic translation. So yeah, this technology is definitely in the distant future.
There is that Star Trek Next Generation episode. What is it? When the walls fell, when Picard is with an alien, and they can't communicate. Not that they can't communicate, but they only communicate in sort of allegory, if I remember correctly.
Yes, that was a great episode. Yeah.
Yeah. What was that? I'm gonna Google that. When the walls fell.
It was. Yeah, it was. I can't remember the name of the episode, but it was. And gosh, I had that phrase stuck in my head for the longest time, and now I can't call it to mind.
Right, Shaka, when the walls fell.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that was a good episode and really interesting.
Sumerians.
Yep. That was a very cool one. So yeah, like applications, if we could apply this, theoretically, if we could create a translator that could talk to dolphins, we could possibly create a translator that would talk to, say, alien species.
It wouldn't be easy. We would need samples of their language. They'd probably, if they're able to get to us from some unknown planet, they'd probably be able to translate our language faster than we.
more than likely, yes, they would be able to translate. Except English is such a bitch to learn, so they'd probably wind up learning a different language than English.
The question is, would their language be more complicated than English? That's the question.
True. Yeah. So, and moving on, good segue talking about Star Trek, because I saw this second story and this instantly brought to mind the second movie in the original franchise. But scientists are talking about the possibility, well, they're talking about should we? We obviously can. The possibility is there, maybe not efficiently, but we do have the capability to seed life on other planets. I'm reading this out of sciencemag.org by Jessica Bodie on September 9th. A question and answer: should we seed life on alien worlds? And the article goes through the moral and the scientific aspects of should we do such a thing. But it instantly obviously brought to mind the Genesis Project from Star Trek. But again, this begs the question: are we as people in a place in our own evolution where this is even a remotely good idea, even though some people believe we're facing some pretty drastic changes on our planet that could have lasting repercussions? Should we take what we have now and send it out into space and possibly create life on a planet where there isn't life right now?
It says it'll take millions of years to evolve into multicellular organisms.
Oh, yeah.
So it's really just more... It's not even an experiment. It's just what'll happen. We'll never live to see it, but
no, yeah.
we probably won't even live to see it get to the planet it's going to, unless we seed something in our own solar system.
Right.
Yeah, it's I think it's a cool idea. I think it's one of those things, that humans will do. It's sort of, just even out of a combination of boredom and curiosity, like, hey, what if we sent, Earth life of some sort, plants, cells, bacteria, these other planets, and let's see what happens. And right, we won't know, right. unless we figure out some sort of accelerant for all of this, which is unlikely. But it's one of those things where it's like, like I said, our curiosity and boredom usually sort of calls us to do some pretty cool things, and I think this is one of them. Yeah,
and I like the sort of juxtaposition between the science and forgive me, but the spirituality behind this whole idea, because a lot of people who believe really hardcore in science will tell you that, they believe after we're gone, there's nothing. There's no afterlife. There's no reason to exist beyond your own lifespan. There's no reason to imagine the world beyond your own lifespan, because there's nothing after it, and we're just here for a short period of time, and we're just dust in the universe that eventually fades away. But the whole idea behind this and exploring further out and leaving, and right in this article, the scientists they're talking to is, this Genesis project gives humans a chance to leave a legacy. The idea that science still accepts the human drive to leave something of ourselves behind and find some sort of everlasting life, whether it be longevity of your actual lifespan or leaving sort of a human footprint in the future, that we could say, in a theoretical afterlife, we could say, yeah, I did that. I find that kind of fascinating, because most people that are hard into science vehemently reject the idea that there's anything beyond our own lifespans. I think that's kind of an interesting thing there.
I wonder if maybe.
Go
ahead.
Yeah, you go ahead.
Oh, well, I was just wondering, Trevor was saying that, if we're going to try this and send out these life, like I said, bacteria, plants, cells, some sort of organism, if we can, as we're working on that, figure out a way of sort of storing all our DNA in a sort of a safe manner, or even if it's just digitized, and sending that code along there in some sort of safety deposit box.
Yeah.
And you never know if after, several million years, an Earth-like type planet evolves and some sort of species evolves, maybe, then they figure out how to unlock the deposit box and bring us back to life.
Yeah,
they wouldn't have our memories. They'd just be humans. They wouldn't have our thoughts.
Yeah, that's true. Unless you could just sort of figure out how to digitize all of that. But yeah, I doubt it.
Yeah,
that's
from a theological perspective, from a religious perspective, it is arrogant to think there's not life on other planets. Question is, how advanced is the life on other planets?
Right.
Were we the first to evolve were we the first species to evolve to our plane of existence? Our intellectual capacity.
Right.
Because if there is aliens that are more advanced than us, it's surprising they haven't come in contact with us.
Well, I watched a documentary the other day, actually. That was supposed to be the science of Star Trek, but it delved a lot into that idea about other species and other races, and it posed a depressing thought, but something that's really pertinent here is that, should life have evolved on another planet? Obviously everybody knows that when you look up into the sky, you're seeing the past, basically. All the light you see in the sky, except for the moon and the sun and the other planets in our solar system, is light from hundreds of thousands of years ago, if not more. And for any species to have evolved like we did, they would have had the same tendency to destroy themselves, to destroy their environments, destroy their planets. And sure, there are billions of planets that could sustain life on there, but the chances that another civilization evolved like ours and survived long enough to get out into space and to come find us are actually pretty slim. We're not even sure we're going to survive long enough to be able to leave our solar system with a human body. So, it's one of those things, but it's just a theory. Who knows? But this...
Isn't that superstructure in space they thought about?
Vaguely heard something about it.
Yeah.
There's also the whole rendezvous with Rama notion of there is advanced life. It's passed by close enough, and just is not interested in us and kept on going.
We're not at the right level yet that bears their interest. Yeah.
And if you believe what Dan Aykroyd says, aliens will never come in contact, especially after 9/11. That is a thing that he actually said. That's he said in an interview. He went crazy.
If you take the insanity out of that and look at it from the perspective that we have of our own world, when we pass by a what's the proper term? It's not a clan. We pass by a group of monkeys, and we see them all using tools, but they're using tools pretty inefficiently, and they're making a lot of noise and carrying on, and they're doing things that are similar to what we do, but they're doing them like monkeys do, and we pretty much look down on them as lesser life forms. If there isn't, like you said, there's an advanced alien species out there that's passed by and looked at us and looked at what we are and what we do, and we're just a bunch of monkeys sitting around using tools the wrong way. And yeah, we might be a curiosity, but nothing that bears talk. I mean, you don't stop and talk to the monkeys. You look at them and take pictures of them and laugh at their antics.
And why wouldn't they try to subjugate us then?
Well,
we do have ingenuity. It's something they would have noticed. Our imagination, ingenuity, our moral...
But do they need it? That's the question. If they're so advanced, do they need a base labor slave society? That's kind of one of those science fiction things that has always bothered me. Is sure, we have enslaved other human beings and used animals for labor, but we're not that advanced. If like Battlefield Earth, if you've got a planet full of people so advanced that they could travel through space like those people do, why do they actually need a subject race of slaves?
You've actually seen Battlefield Earth?
I've read it. I saw it. Yes, it was pretty awful. But I read Battlefield Earth, and the question still remains: if their society is so advanced that they could travel the way they do, why do they need a bunch of primitive people digging up rocks and shit?
It
doesn't.
And of course, there's the Bank of America claim that there's a 50% chance we live in a Matrix reality simulation.
Yeah.
That's a headline from today, by the way. Analysts at Bank of America have established there's a 50% chance we live in the Matrix.
Well, 50-50 shot's pretty good, isn't it? Fun stuff.
Why wouldn't we all be really, really happy all the time? If the point of the simulation was to keep us pacified.
True.
Why wouldn't we all be like...
Well, because the creators of the Matrix are smart enough to know we'd be on to them if they did that. They can't make us happy all the time, or we'd know.
Yeah.
Shh.
But also our free will is an illusion. How...
Yeah.
Why are there bad outcomes?
That is a white rabbit hole we don't want to go down.
I know.
There's too much crazy at the bottom of that hole. So yeah, that's it for our science and techie. Well, not all of our techie news, but that's it for our cool sciencey news. So we're going to talk a little bit about gaming, because I think most of us, all of us, if you're listening, we're all gamers. We like games, and there is a couple little gaming tidbits that came out this past week. Apple, and we're going to talk about Apple a little bit later, but on the gaming front, Apple is putting out on iOS Super Mario Run, which is going to be the first Mario game to come out for iPhone, which is actually a pretty big deal, because I don't think Mario has been on anything but a Nintendo console or handheld since arcades. I mean, like...
And it won't have microtransactions.
Yeah.
Huzzah.
Well, that's what they say now.
It's going to be a flat rate. It's going to be a flat rate.
Is it?
Yeah, that's what they've announced.
So there's not a ton in this article. Super Mario coming to iPhone.
It's just going to be an auto runner. It's going to be like Temple Run, but platformer.
Gotcha.
Presumably a 2D one.
Yep.
I imagine they could do a 3D.
Which is kind of cool.
It wouldn't just be Temple Run.
Which is kind of cool. I'm kind of disappointed that it's only on iOS, because I wouldn't touch iOS with a flaming turd. But
well, I think that's just temporary.
I got an iPhone.
Go ahead.
Yeah, they'll probably go to other ones. I mean...
Yeah, I think when they announced it, I think they sort of worded it specifically that, it launches first on iPhone, on iOS. So I think... Right. The implication is that it definitely will be on Android. It wouldn't really make sense to not be.
Right.
Which is the more profitable market? I don't know which one is bigger, but which one's the more profitable market for proprietary apps? I imagine iPhone is more profitable, but I think Android, there are technically more Android phones in circulation because their code's open source, so any developer can come up with a phone that has it on it.
Oh, right. There's way more Android phones in use, but at least with gaming, if you're going to charge an initial price, which that's what they say Mario will, you'll definitely I mean, it's extremely likely you'll make more money on iPhone.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
For the developer. Yeah.
Interesting. So that's probably why the initial release, they're going to hit the market hard there to get all the big cash right up front, and the release of the rest of the market after that.
And then they'll probably release it on 3DS eventually, because why wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Right. So, and it could also have something to do with the newest phones, the iPhone 7, and maybe that has the best processor until the next phone, Samsung or whomever come out with one. And it may need as much of that power as possible.
Yeah, it could. Very well could. So that's a little tidbit there. And then we also had announced that the PS4 Slim is coming on September 15th for $300. But also, let me see here. If I read this right, there was also the PS4 Pro, which was going to be called the Neo, which is also going to be coming out soon. It doesn't have a date on this article. It just talks about the Slim. But yeah, the PS4 Slim, 500 gigabyte hard drive for you guys who like the PS4. I personally don't have one. But it just looks like a slimmer version. I think PlayStation has pretty much done that from the PS2, haven't they? Don't they always wind up coming out with a slimmer version a couple years down the road?
Seems like it, yeah.
Because I remember the 2 having a really, really small one, and then I think the 3 did too, but I don't remember if the original PlayStation did. It was already kind of small to begin with. But so that's coming out for you guys who like the PS4, and as opposed to Xbox or those of us on the PC. So not much on the gaming news front, but we do want to get talking about there's 2 big things that came out this week from probably the 2 biggest. Would you say that Samsung is probably Apple's biggest competitor, at least on the mobile device market, Brian?
Definitely. I mean, it seems to be coming down to almost a 2-company race. And it's hard to know which one is selling more. They seem to go back and forth. Samsung probably sells a bit more, and Apple probably makes more money. Yeah. And so, but yeah, I mean, it's for the most part it is. There's some other good non-Samsung Android phones out there. I like LG, I like HTC. Sony used to make some really good ones, but you pretty much, consigned, at least in the developed world, where you're going to get a phone for $300 or more to either Samsung or Apple.
Yeah, I can say if the S7 battery is not any better than my S6, I'm probably going to be looking at the Droid Turbo next time I get a phone, because I have an S6 and I love the phone, but by gods, I'm tired of charging my battery sometimes twice a day. Which I hear the 7 is a little better, but not a lot better than the S6's battery, so that's kind of disappointing because I do really like the phone itself. But on the Samsung news front, for you guys who have a Note 7, if you have not heard already, please turn your Note 7 off and don't charge it anymore. Samsung is doing a recall. They are going to be contacting customers and replacing your device beginning on September 19th. I'm not sure if you have to. I'm sure you probably have to take it into your cellular provider. I don't see Samsung mailing out a bunch of Note 7s, but it's possible they are. But they have advised you turn it off, don't use it, and I believe I heard today that they also plan on deactivating them remotely come a certain date, because the risk of fire from the battery is actually so high that they're not even joking around with this shit. So if you guys have a Note 7, turn it off, don't use it. See if you can get a replacement now, or wait the 6 days to get your replacement, because it's bad news, folks. It's not good.
That is bad. That's awful. That's probably worse than like the iPhone. What was it? Bendgate. Remember when it? Yeah. I forget which model it was. Everyone was like bending their phones and outraged. But I played with the Note 7. I loved it. It didn't catch fire.
Thankfully.
So yeah. So and and most people, at least in the U.S., are buying them from their carrier or some other store, and so I don't know. A recall won't. That's not going to be easy.
No.
So, and yeah, I don't know. I assume a lot of people are going to get fired over this one.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen a lot of the details yet, and I'm not even sure Samsung knows why it's happening yet. I mean, we all know lithium batteries are. I mean, it's pretty much advised. Don't plug in a lithium battery and leave it unattended. Lithium batteries, from cars to cell phones to power drills, if you leave them plugged in and they overcharge, they could get too hot and they can catch fire. Especially if they're not ventilated. I've seen a lot of pictures of people that put their phones under things, or they fall down in the couch cushion or whatever, and overheat. So I don't know. Go ahead.
Yeah, and it's what's remarkable about this is all of these the major recalls. So with iPhone, there was, let's see, the antenna gate. Where the antenna was terrible, and then there was the bend gate where people were sitting on their phone, and now there's this battery thing with Samsung. And the shocking thing is these aren't sort of like crazy, unique use cases.
Right.
Like how was this? How did any of this get past testing?
Yeah.
We assume they're doing these amazing quality assurance tests and trying to use them in real world scenarios. Apparently not. But yeah, a battery.
They didn't think trying to see what would happen if they just let the battery stay plugged in for a while. You think that would be one of the first things you'd test?
I bet it
As
is.
if you tried to overcharge a battery.
Yeah, I bet it's part of the testing rigor going forward, though. If it wasn't before, I mean, yeah, I don't know how it got past testing. I imagine, like you said, some people are going to get fired, some quality control standards are going to change, and I'd be willing to bet that more phones probably get tested, because, like you said, I mean, some of those things, like, how do you not notice that the iPhone bent enough to break? Testing 1 or testing 50, because that's something that was not unique at all. That was design wide. That was product wide for that particular one. And again, also with the antenna, if it was the antenna that was bad, every phone was going to behave the same way. So if you tested 1 or you tested 500, you should have found that. At least in this one, like, maybe they didn't. Like Russell said, maybe they didn't leave it plugged in long enough to experience this issue, or maybe it was a run of faulty batteries, but it was just a large run of faulty batteries that got put in a lot of devices, just not the 100 devices they pulled out of the line to test. I don't know.
Maybe that's it, because I mean, if you go to carrier stores, and I have frequented them, a lot of those devices, I mean, the display devices are plugged in all the time.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's why I'm just shocked. I don't know how this is a huge screw up. So I don't know how it happened.
Absolutely. So that's not the big news, but it is big news for those of you who have a Note 7. So definitely take that to heart. Get your recall on the 19th, and keep on trucking with Samsung. So then we're going to move on to, as we've been advertising for the last 3 days, we're going to talk about Apple's courage. And I keep putting courage in quotes. Go ahead, Russell.
But Apple was happy about the Note 7 news.
Oh, yeah, I did hear that they, if I remember right, as soon as the issue was announced with the Note 7, and I don't remember the exact figure, but Apple pushed a very large uptick in the number of units it was going to ship immediately after they heard about that recall.
Yeah, brand switching is going to happen. Probably, because
absolutely. But then they dropped the ball in such a fantastic manner. So I don't know. A lot of people might be going, I don't know. Do I want to be able to listen to my headphones, or do I want a battery that catches fire?
Right.
Yeah. Well, remember that the iPhone will be coming with an adapter for the weird jack they're using.
It will.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to... Go ahead.
Oh, and I was just going to say, like, I think from both companies that it just sort of reveals that, I would say, for over 90% of the users, over 90% of the time, there's no need to upgrade.
Right.
If you have a Samsung 6, if you have an iPhone 6, you're fine.
Yep. Absolutely. That's very true. I still have my S6. It's not due for a replacement until December. And I'll probably, every time I wind up replacing a phone, I jump a couple generations, because I'm the same way with Windows. I'm the same way with drivers for my video card. If it's not broke, it don't need to be fixed. I used Windows XP for a lot of years until I jumped to Windows 7. I skipped 2 generations of Windows OSs. My phones, I always wind up skipping 2 or 3 generations of phones, because I don't go replace it the first time a new one is available on the market. It's just silly. But
right, and these aren't cheap. I mean, the I don't know what the lowest price. I mean, if a Samsung Galaxy S7, an iPhone 7, I mean, it's going to be at least $600.
Oh,
so
some phone companies like Sprint allow you to, for a monthly fee, be able to upgrade your phone whenever the new one comes out.
Well, that's a good deal.
Yeah, sort of. Verizon does the same thing, but if you don't fulfill the contract, like that's true for 18 months. That's why I say I'm on the Verizon Edge plan, which is I pay monthly, and I can actually go replace my phone whenever the heck I want to. But if I don't get to the 18-month mark where I've actually paid for the phone based on that monthly charge, then I will pay the difference. So I can't just go get a new phone every month. I will wind up paying what I didn't pay for the phone that I got, before I replaced it. So there's always a catch.
Yeah. I mean, these are not cheap. I mean, these are, $500 to $1,000, and so you better need to have a really good reason to want to upgrade.
Absolutely. So if you guys have been living under a rock and you don't know Apple's announcement, the iPads or iPhone 7, I don't have one, apologies. The iPhone 7 is coming out, and they removed the headphone jack, and it does come with an adapter to plug into their Lightning port so that you can use corded headphones. The issue that a lot of people, and I would have if I had one, so let me lay out a scenario for you where I'm watching a lot of Apple fans, and I'm going to call them fans because they're no longer consumers to me at this point. They are straight up fans, a lot of these people, because they'll jump through flaming hoops to defend anything Apple does, and shell out hundreds of dollars in order to get the latest product. When I'm at work and my phone is sitting on my desk and it was sitting all night on my nightstand, so the battery is probably at about 50%, and I decide I wanted to listen to music, I plug my phone into the charger, and I plug my headphones into the headphone jack, and I listen to Spotify at work. You can't do that on the i7 without the $150 Apple earbuds that you have to buy. But if I just spent $600 on a phone...
that's how much those things are going to cost? That's ridiculous.
The earbuds? Yeah, they're $149,
that's absolutely
$159.
Ridiculous.
Oh, absolutely. And we'll get into the more ridiculous part of that here in a minute. So Apple has cited 3 reasons, and I only remember 2 of them. Oh, no, I remember the third one now. So they cite 3 reasons why they did this. The first one is courage. And I find that extremely ridiculous because, like I said, Apple fans will jump through flaming hoops to give Apple a boatload of money for anything they put out. I'm fairly certain that Apple could take dog poop and chrome it and sell the iTurd for $600, and people would line up around the block to buy it because it has the Apple logo on it. So there's no courage here. Apple could do anything they want to, and people are still going to buy their product. So that's just crap. That's just garbage talk.
Yeah. Courage is, not only does it make them seem ridiculous and just sort of pompous and full of themselves, but the whole point is to give people reason to upgrade and then to buy additional accessories, and so increase how much money Apple makes, and that's a great corporate vision. It's fairly standard amongst all corporations, and so
Absolutely.
But making money isn't courageous, I don't think.
Right. Absolutely.
So what are the other 2 reasons?
And it's and I want to say something about that because I don't want anybody to misconstrue what I'm saying, though. It is not courageous, but it's not evil. I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, corporations want to make money, they're so evil. What I find funny is, though, is a vast majority of the Apple fans out there do believe that corporations who they consider money grabbing, greedy, evil corporations are out there just to make a buck, and those people are awful. While I tweet about that on my iPhone that I just spent $600 for.
Right.
That's going to become even more interesting here in a few minutes. So the other two reasons, they wanted to make it slimmer, and they thought the 3.5 jack would not allow them to make it slim enough. That one makes sense. If you want a phone that's as thick as a credit card, then you're going to have to get rid of some of those parts that, 3.5 millimeters. If that's too thick for your phone, then you can't have a 3.5 millimeter jack in your phone. That's unfortunate that they want to go that thin, but they didn't need to go that thin. I don't know a single Apple user who doesn't put their phone in a case because they don't want to drop their extremely fragile eggshell $600 iPhone on the floor and break it. They put it in a case, so most of them don't care how thin the phone is. They already put it in something that makes it a lot thicker.
I do not. I've never used a case. I've got an iPhone 6 Plus, but
really?
Yeah, I don't need it any thinner. So, it doesn't really help me any.
Right.
But hey. If you can get it thinner, I suppose that's a valid reason.
Yeah.
Doesn't really matter to me, but I suspect for some users it will.
Right, and that's actually legitimate. Like I said, if you want it thinner than 3.5 millimeters, you're going to have to lose the 3.5 millimeter jack. That is actually a legitimate reason. The other reason that I saw is that they needed that to help make it splash proof. They didn't actually say waterproof in the article. They said splash proof. And if I remember right, the Samsung S7 is waterproof, and it still has this 3.5 millimeter jack. So I find that excuse a little dumb as well. Like, if Samsung can do it, is Apple not technologically advanced enough to make a more expensive phone the same waterproof technology and keep the 3.5 jack? I don't know. Like, Samsung can do it. Maybe Apple could do it too.
Yeah, that sounds to me like someone is just sort of trying to make up a reason to get you to upgrade and to accept having an adapter and having to buy a more expensive, lightning accessory.
Exactly.
Because you're right. I mean, there are other devices out there that have the jack and are waterproof.
Yep. So that's not holding water there, so to speak. The other issue that came up, and I saw this, and it caught my eye because my wife does trade shows. She does vendor shows on the weekends, and she uses the Square tool to take credit card transactions. And when she is out at a show, her phone's not going to last all day. If she's using it to talk to me, if she's using it to run transactions, she's using it to check Facebook when business is slow, her battery starts to run down, so she plugs it into her portable charging battery. And if she were to have this product, she wouldn't be able to use her transaction tool and her battery at the same time. She'd have to unplug one to plug the other one in, and then unplug it, plug it back in, which would just be a pain in the ass. So that's something somebody pointed out recently that I didn't even consider because I just use headphones with mine. So that one, struck me right away as different.
Yeah.
No, that one is to me that's a very legitimate concern because for example, I'll have mine plugged into the battery, and I'll also have that you'd be using the jack, and that's because when I'm driving and commuting, I'll have the phone plugged in because Waze or maps, other maps will drain it, and I'll cars before like 2014, you can't just sort of Bluetooth the music, or podcast streaming, whatever. So I think there's going to be a lot of people that are peeved, and I have a feeling that Apple is going to very quickly roll out a very cheap, adapter that's for both battery and headphone jack.
Right, sort of a Y jack that'll handle both. And that's what I wondered.
I use my iPhone primarily in the car to listen to music. I use through the headphone jack, and So this is going to be interesting. I will probably upgrade to the iPhone 7 because I have the ability to through my carrier. Probably about a month after it comes out, probably to wait for any software glitches to get, because there's going to be some. There always are.
Oh, yeah.
They're launching a new iOS with it.
But
so
it makes me wonder. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be caught unawares by this too. They don't pay attention to Twitter or social media, and they don't really watch tech news much. They just go get the newest iPhone when it comes out, we just assume some of the things are going to be in there. I didn't check my latest phone to make sure it had a headphone jack in it. I just assume every phone I've ever had has had a headphone jack in it. So you go to your carrier, change in your iPhone 6 for your iPhone 7, you get home, open the box, pop everything out, and a week later when you go to listen to your music, you find out there's no headphone jack. Like, I bet a lot of people are going to wind up living that scenario over the next few weeks.
Or like people who fly a lot, you're going to have your headphones on, and now it's sort of like, oh, okay, well, what am I going to do with the battery? That's 3-hour flight. Look how much that's going to run it down.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So, and then come to find out, on September 8th, this article came out, unfortunately, in The Verge. It was the only article I could find specifically on this at the time. Not a huge reader of the site, but I did find this article. Headlined, "The biggest winner for removing the headphone jack is actually Apple." And why that is because Apple owns the #1 wireless headphone company in the world. They also are, if I remember right, this makes them the largest owner of Bluetooth technology in the world. So every Bluetooth device you buy to work with your Apple or with your iPhone 7 is going to put money back into Apple's pocket, whether you buy an Apple product or not. So they're just making money from both ends of this deal, just for taking this headphone jack out.
Oh yeah, we were mocking Apple's VP Phil Schiller for calling this courageous when it's all about margins, it's all about lock-in.
Yeah.
You're using sort of, Apple's very good at using other people's standards, so like Bluetooth, and then sort of adding something proprietary over it and figuring out a way to use that to increase their margins, which is great for them. This is when you're the size of an Apple, this is sort of what takes your focus, which is how do we, it's the old Microsoft playbook: embrace, extend, extinguish. How do we, sort of embrace someone else's standard, so-called extend it, which is really sort of adding your own sort of special sauce to it.
Right.
Kill off the competition, increase margins, make lock-in, even tighter.
Yeah.
I don't fault a corporation necessarily for doing that, but it doesn't make me like them. They're basically like old Microsoft, and it's sort of like, well, you can get away with it, and so I guess it's good for you and good for people who own your stock, but I'm not necessarily sure it moves us forward.
No, and that's the one thing I've always wanted to be clear on. I do not begrudge Apple for doing what they're doing. They're a corporation. Their entire intent is to make money. I just don't like the way they do it. From the get-go, I've not been a big Apple fan, and it's become worse over the years as Apple has been touted as this morally superior corporation that come to find out they're not as green as they say. They do use underpaid labor in Southeast Asia. They aren't this morally upstanding super company that everybody makes them out to be, and I think that's what kills me more than anything else. At least I know when I'm buying a Microsoft product, I know who Microsoft is. And when you look at Apple, they give you this face of how, and their fans do it too, like how awesome Apple is, and I look at this and go, no, they're just like everybody else. They're not that cool, and worse than everybody else. Like we said, like we were talking before, if I put an MP3, if I take a CD that I bought 20 years ago, and I put it on my computer, I turn it into an MP3 player, I drop the file onto my Android phone, it links it to my Google Play account, and I can listen to that music whenever or wherever I want to through my Google account. Then I could take that MP3 off my phone and drop it onto any other MP3 device and do whatever the hell I want with it because I own that CD and I bought that music. But when you buy through Apple, you can't do that. And worse, when you link your two Apple devices, like this happened to my dad. This is one of the things that really pissed me off with Apple. My dad had his phone and his laptop, and he had his iPhone account or his iTunes account set up on both, and he went and changed his music on his laptop thinking that it would just stay on his laptop, and then without even thinking, hit the sync button on his mobile device, and it synced his iTunes account, and it removed a bunch of the music from his mobile device, because it syncs them, because that's what iTunes does. And like, that's just one of those little things where it's like, why would you even do that? Why would you make it so prohibitive for people who are not that tech savvy to use your device the way they want to use it?
Yeah, I think this is sort of, it doesn't help anyone now, but I think what Apple is doing now by sort of mimicking old Microsoft's behavior is it sort of sows the seeds of its own destruction in a sense. It's, Apple products, for whether you thought they were the best value or not, were designed to be as simplistic and to minimize everything. Let's not have any features that we don't need. Let's not have any buttons we don't need. Let's not have any, services or applications we don't need. Well, sort of what today's Apple is doing is adding as much complexity in as possible, because that sort of enhances lock-in. It sort of, it keeps you from being able to leave. Why would you can't leave iTunes, because then what happens to your music, as you were saying?
Yeah.
But what happens, as we saw with Microsoft, is you start focusing on lock-in and on margins, and you really you sort of seed innovation to others, and I think we're already starting to see that happen. I was reading Daring Fireball today, and because it had there were several new iPhone 7 reviews up, and Daring Fireball is a site it's a popular Apple blog, a site about Apple, not run by Apple, and I would say at least the first 1,500 words on the review for the new iPhone 7 was about the colors it comes in, and you think, what happened to innovation? I mean, this is sort of what the people who love Apple are actually talking about, like 1,500 words on the color. You could sort of see what's happening. You could sort of see the calcification already setting in.
Yeah. Well, I think that's true, and I remember I listened to you talk to, and his name's going to escape me, but you were on Writers Talking, a few months back, actually, and I listened to you talk about some of the Apple tech that you wrote about and the blogs and everything, and gods, don't let me lose my train of thought now. Oh, damn it. And I wound up losing it. There was something I wanted to ask you directly related to what you were just talking about. Oh, I remember. You had mentioned, it seemed like you made the implication that a lot of tech that covers, and I think you said it right there, a lot of the tech writers and reviewers that cover Apple almost seem like they write for Apple specifically, as opposed to taking a real critical look at Apple as a product and as a consumer service, rather than a mouthpiece for the Apple company. And I mean, do you still find that to be true? Is that what you were saying? Or?
Well, that wasn't what I was saying, but essentially, I mean, they're all Apple has exceptionally great PR, and Apple users will sort of guarantee your site clicks, and all the writers, New York Times tech writers, Verge tech writers, they're aware of this, and so they don't want to say anything bad, and also the fact that they use the products. So, for example, if you read a review, someone that basically speaks regularly with Apple PR if they write, for example, oh, well, the Samsung phone, oh, sure, it's great, but, Samsung software is bloatware. They always use the term bloatware. Well, I guarantee you, if all of them are saying this, it's because they got the term from Apple PR.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, well, firstly, I know lots of Android users. They're using Google Play, Android. They're using Google services. They're not using Samsung.
Right.
Okay, it's a Samsung hardware, but it's sort of like a way of saying, well, sure, Samsung is great, but they have bloatware, so stick with iPhone. It's they're basically, I mean, too many in tech writing field are basically just sort of, whether they mean to or not, are working as PR.
Gotcha. That makes sense, but hopefully, and you had mentioned The Verge, and I'm reading this article on The Verge, who is basically calling out Apple for using this move to basically make more money by turning around and selling the device people need just to listen to music now on the new phone, which is not unheard of. I mean, you go to you go to Verizon and you buy your Samsung phone, you can buy, accessories sold by the same company for your phone. But when it comes to Android, in most cases, you can go to Walmart too and buy much cheaper devices that work just the same way. Where you really can't do that for Apple, you have to go to Walmart and buy the Apple device that is much more expensive.
I mean, think of like the first 30 years of Apple products, like them or not, think they were, the best value or not. But simplicity was kind of a hallmark.
Yeah.
Usability. Think in the last 5 years how bloated iOS has become. The Apple Music, the UI on Apple Watch. I mean, these are almost unusable. They're so bad and so complex. It's really a rather stunning shift that we're seeing.
Yeah. So hopefully we see more, and I'd like to see more tech. I think we've dealt with that, whether it be through video game critique and journalism, and slowly moving into other types of news media. Hopefully we're seeing news media reviewers, critiques, and all of these start to realize that they have more of a job serving the consumer than they do the companies. And hopefully people become a little more aware, whether they're reading something that's really just a repetition of PR, company PR, or an actual critical look at a product. But hopefully we see more of that, because it makes it better for everybody. Especially, I know that companies don't like being called out and told when they're doing something that consumers don't like. But at the end of the day, if they give a damn, then that'll just make them better. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
We'll see.
So yeah, I think it looks like we did lose the stream, but we're still recording, so that's okay. I will let everybody know, and
we lost the stream?
Yeah, for some reason it has stopped broadcasting on the site, and I'm not sure why, which has not happened before the end of the stream. But thank you so much I want to see if I can get it back real quick, but I'm not sure I'm going to be able to. Let me see here. Yep, looks like we got it back. So, hey, folks, if you did see a black screen for a few minutes, we lost the stream. I wanted to get it back. Thankfully, we give Brian a moment. Brian, let us know where everybody can read your stuff and what's going on with you.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. There were 2 sites I would recommend, soundcloud.com and /Brian S. Hall.
Okay.
And then, or else just brianshall.com.
So brianshall.com.
Yep, because I'll link to stuff. That's my own site, but I usually link to recent articles that I've done or popular ones.
And they can find you on Twitter at Brian S. Hall, correct?
Same thing, yep.
All right, so yeah, go check him out. I've read a couple of his articles and some tech stuff, and it's some good information for everybody out there. So yeah, again, we lost the stream for a few minutes. Thank you so much for joining us, Brian. Your insight into a product I don't use, and hopefully that was helpful to everybody out there. And we will get the recording up. And if you guys are watching the recording show, thank you for sticking with us. If you're still on the live stream, sorry about the downtime for a few minutes, and thank you for watching. You guys have a wonderful night, and we will see you next time.
Take care.